This question is different. It says that there are one, two, three, five sentences given to us, and these five have to be arranged to form a coherent paragraph. So we don't have the options, we have to key in the answer, right? And we call this question as theta parajumble. Now, let's read all the sentences because the first job that we must do in theta parajumble is find the opening sentence. Now, statement 1 says the process of handling down implies not a. What kind of process are you speaking about, and what kind of idea? I mean, handling down. What is being handed down for what purpose? So there is a great degree of abruptness in statement 1, and therefore it cannot be the opening sentence. Now, statement 2 says wherever Western scholars have worked on the Indian past, the selection is even more apparent. Now, again, see the way the process of handling down is abrupt. Similarly, the selection is what kind of selection are we talking about? So even this is very much an abrupt sentence. Every generation selects what it requires. So this selection and this selection, every generation selects what it requires from the past and makes its innovation some more than others. Now again, there is a degree of abruptness. We must find that sentence which is basically an idea that is likely to open the paragraph. Fourth says it is now a truism to say that traditions are not handed down unchanged but are invented. So this looks like a good opening sentence. Even fifth looks like a good opening sentence. It says just as life has death as its opposite, so is tradition by default the opposite of innovation. So the word tradition has been introduced in the paragraph. And if you look at this, traditions is again coming here, right? And then tradition is again coming here. So we get a feeling that the word tradition is linking the sentences. And it is wise for us to open the paragraph by introducing what exactly tradition is all about. And statement 5 precisely does that. So tradition is the subject matter of the paragraph, and the opening sentence is 5, which says just as life has death as its opposite, so tradition by default is the opposite of innovation. So again, tradition is one entity, it is the opposite of innovation, and therefore we have invention, we have tradition. So tradition, invention are coming in almost every sentence. And therefore, fifth is likely to be the opening sentence. Just as life has death as its opposite, so is tradition by default the opposite of innovation. It is now a truism to say that traditions are not handed down unchanged but are invented. Now, this handing down is basically connected with this handing down. So before you say the process of handing down implies not X but Y, you must say that it is now truism to say that. So fourth must come before one, because you say just as life has death as its opposite, so tradition by default is the opposite of innovation. It is now a truism, in a sense accepted fact, to say that traditions are not handed down but are invented. So it is now a truism to say that the traditions are not handed down unchanged but are invented. The process of handing down implies not a passive transfer but some contestation in defining what exactly is to be handed down. Now see, it is invented. It is now a fact that traditions are not handed down unchanged. That means basically traditions are being changed or are being invented. And that is what is being repeated in one. It says it is not a passive transfer. That means basically some kind of changes are happening because it's not a passive transfer. In fact, but some contestation in defining what exactly is to be handed down. So and that is where the change is happening. So traditions are not handed down unchanged. In fact, there are definitions as to what is being handed down. Therefore, fourth must come before one. And how that happens? Every generation selects what it requires from the past and makes its innovation some more than others. So, but some contestation in defining what exactly is to be handed down. What exactly is to be handed down? Every generation selects what it requires. So this what exactly is to be handed down is done by selecting what is required from the past. Make some innovations. Some do it more than others. Wherever Western scholars have worked on the Indian past, the selection is even more apparent. So every generation selects, but the Western scholars of the Indian past, the selection is even more apparent. So this even more apparent shows that there is some kind of comparison. So in Western scholars' case, the selection is even more apparent, and in every generation's case, the selection is done But in Western cases, it is more apparent. So basically, if you look at the sequence, then 5 opens the paragraph, and then it says here that it is now a truism to say that traditions are not handed down but are invented. The process of handing down implies not a passive transfer but some contestation of what exactly is to be handed down. And then the selection is done of what is to be handed down. Some select more than the others. And as far as Western scholars are, so basically we have 5, then we have 4, right? And then we have basically 1, so it is not 3, it is 1. And then 3 we have, and then we have 2. So 5, 4, 1, 3 to a sequence. So you start saying that just as life has death its opposite, so tradition is by default the opposite of innovation. It is now a truism to say that traditions are not handed down unchanged but are invented. The process of handing down implies not a passive transfer but some contestation in defining what exactly is to be handed down. Every generation selects what it requires from the past and makes it innovation, some more than others. As far as Western scholars are concerned, the selection is even more apparent. So 5, 4, 1, 3, 2 is the right sequence.